All right, welcome everyone. This is the Drupal Association Community Chat. This is an informal session where you can talk to members of staff and the board about the DA, about our programs, about our plans for the future, about upcoming DrupalCons, any and everything that you might want to ask. We do want to take your questions, so as soon as you have something you'd like to ask, please do start lining up at the mic, but we'll do some introductions and go over some things as well, just informally here. So it'll be mostly driven by you, and thank you for joining us. Maybe we should start off making sure that everyone knows who's on stage. So I'll start really quick. I'm Tim Lennon, CTO of the Drupal Association, Hestenet on Drupal.org. Been with the association about 7.5 years and in Drupal about 14 years. So you'll see me working with the engineering team to support all of the collaboration tools that we use to build Drupal together, responding to performance or security issues or anything like that with the rest of our team, and working to build a better Drupal. You might know this guy.
I guess I'll introduce myself too. My name is Dries. I started the Drupal project. I'm still the project lead today. I've been doing Drupal for 22-ish years. And that maybe not everybody knows, I also started Acquia, which is one of the sponsors. And I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Acquia.
Hello, my name is Mike Herschel. I'm the community elected board member that's on stage here. I've been part of the board since maybe October or November. I've been doing Drupal for like 15 years now, which is like pretty crazy for me, and I care about it a whole bunch. And I'm from Gainesville, Florida.
Hi, my name is Nick Wienhoff. I'm from Belgium. That's where Drupal started. I've been in the Drupal world for 15 years, and up until last week, I was the CTO of Dropsolid, which is like a European Drupal company. And since this week, I'm the Director of Contributor Success at GitLab. And since November in the board.
Thank you. I'm Patti. I come from Iceland, and I live in Germany at the moment. Probably for a very long time. I am in the Drupal Association board since 2018, and before that I was mainly organizing events in the Drupal community. I've been using Drupal since 2007, and yeah, I'm currently the chair of the board. I think we are here 4 from the board. Yes. So if you have any questions around the board or how that works or what we do, then bring them on and we will answer them. Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie. I am the Chief Finance and Operations Officer and also the Acting Executive Director as of a few weeks ago, I think, now. So pretty new to the role. I live here in Portland, so welcome. If I haven't met you yet, please say hi to me. I've been with the Drupal Association for, well, let's see, it'll be 4 years this fall. And I'm just excited to chat with you all. Ashley is also here, Chief Development Officer. So if you have any questions that you want to ask Ashley, she can come up. We'll hand her a microphone. Oh, I can't, it's really hard to see from up here.
We got a couple more. Raise your hand if you're Drupal Association staff.
Yes, thank you. Oh,
so
Christina,
we got a couple members
thanks.
of the engineering team, folks hanging out.
It is quite hard to see from stage, so if other staff roll in, feel free to let us know.
Awesome. So I'll kick off with some questions, and again, at any point when anyone has some, please do line up at the mic and we'll cut you in front of the rest of the line. But I'd love to go down the row and let everybody express what's most important to you about the mission of the DA, why you think it's an important part of the Drupal community and kind of what we do. And Dries, I mean, you have the history of, starting it, getting everything off the ground. So maybe you could tell that story a little bit.
Oh, yeah. How the Drupal Association was started and why? Yeah, funny. Let's see, I forgot when we got started actually, but so, I had started Drupal. Drupal had started to grow, and in 2005, we decided to have the first Drupal conference. And so we organized that with a few people, and it was a huge success. at the time, we had expected maybe 10 people to show up, and 40 people showed up, and we couldn't believe it, And I couldn't believe it because you have to remember, at the time I was doing, I was a software developer, and my job had nothing to do with Drupal. I would work on Drupal at night, on the weekends, and I would honestly never talk about Drupal with anyone. And all of a sudden, there's like 40 people in Belgium that wanted to talk about Drupal all week. It was crazy. But it was also a lot of fun, and we left at DrupalCon with the idea that we were going to organize some more DrupalCons. And so I helped organize the next one as well. And I'm not sure if I should say this or not, but we found sponsors and budget, and I would just take on that money and put it on my personal checking account, And I should have probably declared that as income, I guess. I'm not sure, but
it's long enough that the IRS can't get you.
That's
now.
right.
You'll
Also,
okay.
This was in Belgium, so
or,
I feel
or
pretty
whatever
safe.
Entity there would come
Maybe that's why I moved to the U.S.
The secrets of Dries' tax evasion revealed.
But anyway, long story short, we started to do these things like conferences. We had to pay for servers, and I was doing a lot of that from my personal checking account, and other people would do other things from their checking account. And obviously, that isn't a good way to do things, right? And so it made sense at the time to create an organization that could be the checking account, and where we could put the money, and we could use the money to do, fund the operations. And that was the original reason why the Drupal Association was started. It wasn't a grand vision or a big plan. It was just like we needed to, professionalize how we do, simple things. Of course, over time, the Drupal Association has grown quite a bit because in the beginning, there was no staff for the first, I don't even know right now, many years. There was not a single staff member. Everything was done by volunteers. But as DrupalCon started to grow, as our visitors on Drupal.org started to grow, our number of contributors started to grow, all these things got bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, we were doing conferences, with 2,000 people, 3,000 people, millions of people visiting Drupal.org, and it became quite the operation. And so the Drupal Association grew, and we started hiring staff and all of these things. And so today, the Drupal Association is absolutely, essential to Drupal's success. Like, without the Drupal Association, Drupal would just stop to exist, because the Drupal Association takes care of, obviously, DrupalCon, but also, all of our collaboration infrastructure. So to answer your question there, like, one of the key things that the DA does is it makes sure that we can all work together on Drupal.org. All the tooling. And so, yeah, that's kind of the history of it, really. It started in Belgium, and we actually moved it to the US too at some point. So it has gone through a few iterations, but that's how we got here.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dries. Mike, why don't you give your perspective, especially as a new community-elected member of the board, your perception of the DA and your understanding of the DA, and maybe how that's changed before and after you joined?
That's an excellent question. So, prior to coming to the board, like, there's a perception that, everybody, they're off handling things that don't directly affect me. Like that the board is solving problems that might not need to be solved, or something like that. Coming into it, what I learned is there's a lot of big picture topics that are being discussed that directly affect how I contribute code. If y'all don't know, like, I do some core contribution, and I also have a module that I contribute, and it's interesting to see how these conversations directly will affect me, and that does, like, the stuff that you're working on with GitLab and stuff. But it goes beyond that. There's you're talking about Drupal.org. Drupal.org has, like, so many different functions. In addition to being our primary collaboration tool, it's a marketing tool. You know, it's a learning tool. It does all this type of stuff, and that affects me either directly or indirectly. So it's really interesting, and I think the most surprising thing that for this weekend, this is my first weekend being in person with everybody, and I really expected to go into the boardroom, and I would expect at least one person I didn't like. And Nick. Yeah. But like everybody was very warm, and like I'm coming in there, and I have you have a little bit of imposter syndrome being with people like Dries and Nick, and I had ideas, and everybody was very open to my ideas, and that like really surprised me and made me feel valuable. So thank you all for that.
Awesome, fantastic. Nick, please.
You're not the only one with an imposter syndrome. I'm just saying it. Yeah, so, yeah, maybe to add to that question, I come from a very biased position in Europe in that sense. So I'm very involved in the European community. I'm the chair of the Belgian Drupal Association as well. And then 3 weeks ago, we organized Drupal Developer Days. You might know the event. So it's very much Europe and development and contribution, all that kind of stuff. What you said about like how does that impact me, the Drupal Association or the board even. So I was also very curious, like what is happening there. And like for me, the biggest takeaway is that I started to think about how do you connect the dots? Like how do you connect the local association with the global association? Like how can you benefit from both ways? Or what's that bridge? And I think, yeah, that's like, if I wake up with the jet lag, like last night, that's what like pops up in my mind. So.
Awesome. How about you, Batty? What's your, how has your perception of the DA changed over the years as you became involved in the board and now the chair? And where do you see us going?
I started in Drupal in 2007. I didn't know that the Drupal Association existed until in 2015, 14, when I went to my first DrupalCon. So obviously, when I didn't know it existed, I just used the tool that the infrastructure. So therefore, for me, that was an interesting journey, because then obviously when I started to learn what the DA does, I realized that that there is actually somebody there, this was just my ignorance then. There is somebody who takes care of the software, because you thought it was just there, right? And I really appreciate that was the first thing that we did when we decided to be part of the Drupal Association, was actually just, we need to fund that. So we started to be supporting partners right away. And I think the other European companies that came to me and they said, also when I say we, I talk about my company in Europe, they said like, why are you a supporting partner of this thing there in the United States doing DrupalCon? And I'm like, no, like DrupalCon is something, part of it. But like, I need to fund the infrastructure that is where I'm running my business on. And that is, and has always been like my heart with the Drupal Association. And then of course, like learning everything that you're all doing, and I think like with this very small team, that there's like all the support. I've been part of the event organizer group with Matthew here and others, and like all the support that you're bringing, like everything that you're doing. When we say like we need a place to put our events on, events.drupal.org is not enough for us, then you're like, okay, we're going to do it. It takes of course time because there are priorities, but extremely great journey, and sometimes I think we don't talk about it enough. And that is my mission now, to actually like highlight all the great stuff that you're doing. So thank you for that.
Awesome. And how about you, Angie? Something about the DA or the board that maybe people don't know about, or part of the regular experience perhaps, that you'd love people to be more aware of?
Well, I think the staff is incredibly impactful and nimble for the size. We tend to be really humble, I think, as a team, but Neil, Brendan, Tim, and Ryan, who's not here in particular, do such cool stuff all the time for the Drupal project. And so one of the things, to kind of echo what Batty said, I think we as an association can do more to kind of talk about that. externally, and that's in itself such a great reason to support the Drupal Association. And then just in the last couple of years, part of this came from Heather, who was our previous executive director and was so great for the organization. We started focusing a lot on diversity, equity, and inclusion internally, lots of education for the staff along that topic. Lately, we've been really focused on things like how we build a psychologically safe workplace and what we can do to really support the staff. We have a program that I have been lucky to be a part of called Discover Drupal, and there are a couple people sitting in the audience that have been a part of that, which was a really cool, really cool program that actually community came to us and said, hey, we really care about this. Do you care about it too? And I was like, absolutely. This is really great. I want to teach new people Drupal. I want to reach out to historically marginalized communities and bring them into Drupal. So how do we make this happen? And I think one of the really cool parts about the Drupal community and about the DA is like we can all work together for these common goals and to really make impact. So I just was really excited to be able to work with these community members that are so passionate and engaged and volunteering their time. I mean, I could probably talk for like 2 hours about all the cool stuff that we do. Those are just a few things that are sort of top of mind for me, and especially I had the privilege of sitting with the board for a couple of days in the boardroom and hearing all of their cool ideas and strategy to really impact not just the organization, but the Drupal project, and that was really exciting. So I think we're going to see some really cool stuff happening in the next year. Yeah.
Awesome, very cool. And I think it's important to emphasize the fact that because the Drupal Association is a small staff and led by a volunteer board, it's easy for us to sometimes feel sort of outnumbered or perhaps overwhelmed by the scope of a global community that we want to support. And both for ourselves and for the people who want to come to us and work with us as a community, it helps to think of us as multipliers. We're people who can take an idea in the community and amplify it, give it reach, give it attention, and help us do what open source does best, which is organize together around achieving these initiatives. So, it's never up to the staff alone to make something happen. It's up to us to highlight, enable, accommodate new ideas that will move the Drupal community forward, and I think that's a big part of what we do. I think there was a question. Was there a question? Yeah, let's do it.
First off, I want to say thank you so much. It feels really, really good to be back together. This is my 25th DrupalCon. I've been involved in the community since 2006 in a wide variety of different roles, and this community is one of the most blessed things in my life. So I just wanted to say that to start off with. I am super interested in how the association has weathered financially. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, there was a huge community effort to fundraise for the association. My Little Camp donated all of its profits for its year, to the association to try to help out. And I know that there were a lot of other folks in the community who did the exact same thing. Their camps did the same thing. I also have a sense that the numbers that you have here this year are a little bit lower than previous years, although still tremendous given the fact that we're coming out of a pandemic. But all of these things, make some of us a little nervous because we do not want you to go away.
Sure.
I took a drink of water because I had a feeling that I would be the one answering that question, since I've been in the Chief Financial Operations Officer. Can't even say the title right now. So to answer your question, we are in good shape. That is the very short answer. Slightly longer answer. So Drupal Cares, which was the fundraiser that you referred to, we raised about $500,000, which was amazing. And at that time, we were facing trying to cancel multiple in-person events. We had contracts with venues and hotels, which at the time we did that was a great idea to do, but unfortunately we had no way to know that we would have a global health crisis to face. So that fundraiser, coupled with scaling back a bit in the organization budget-wise, we received 2 payroll protection loans throughout the pandemic that were forgiven. We actually were able to have net positive years the last couple of years, and I've been looking at what year was that? 2020 when this all started. I've been looking at the last several years kind of as one long year, not only because it felt like long year, but also because we wanted to be prepared for what we knew would be coming, which was the slow kind of re-entry into these in-person events and just building financial stability in the organization. So we actually built up some cash reserves with some of that fundraising money that's going to help us now mitigate the risk of not only this year, and by the way, this year we budgeted very carefully for a smaller event. We knew, based on surveys and other information, that we should plan for that. But we still have 2 more events that we are contracted in person. And of course, we want to have DrupalCon, but we've got these big contracts. So we are well positioned and kind of thinking of that all holistically in terms of the risk. But we also didn't want to just sit on a bunch of cash, so the board actually set aside some money in a board designated fund to invest in some strategic initiatives. So we're also trying to be cautious but still make an impact and not just kind of sit on those funds. And I think in the time that I've been with the organization, we've also done a lot to just build extremely strong financial controls, looking at best practices in the nonprofit industry in particular, and adopting those best practices. And we've worked on improving our budgeting systems and lots of nerdy accounting things that I won't go too much into depth on. But so we're in great shape. Thank you for donating, because that made a huge difference, and anyone else here that donated, and we are being really good stewards of those donations, and it's part of why we're here right now today. We were able to survive the last couple of years, and we're really able to cautiously, forge ahead and continue to do these awesome events. So I don't know if there's anything y'all want to add, but
I mean, I would just add, if you were here this morning for the Drupal.org panel, you saw some new faces, right? Irina and Caleb in particular were up here with us, and there were folks who were able to join. We had 4 consultant folks join us on a sort of one-year basis to help give us capacity to do things like invest in the GitLab tooling initiative, to do things like get our Drupal 9 migrations and all these sorts of things. So when we thought we were going to have to kind of contract with our ambitions about how we were supporting the community while we weathered the storm, like the extreme generosity of the community in that fundraiser really made it possible for us to actually, in some ways, do more. And we're thrilled with everyone who came, because this is an event at a scale we were hoping we could achieve, but unsure of. And it's been wonderful to be together with everyone again. So
maybe to add something to that. So thank you for, was it 25? 25 DrupalCons. Like, I counted it yesterday. It was 17 for me, so huge respect for you in that sense. I'm wearing my first DrupalCon t-shirt for Szeged. But what I wanted to say, so 3 weeks ago we had Drupal Developer Days, and I remember my vibe, or the vibe that I had from DrupalCon Szeged. I think also 400, 500 people, I don't know how big that was. And Drupal Developer Days was postponed also for almost 2.5 years, something like that. And I was also afraid, in the sense that, with less people show up. But ultimately, there were almost 400 people that showed up, which was our maximum capacity. And there were people like, can I still buy a ticket? That kind of stuff. And the vibe that I remember and love about the Drupal community coming from Saget and then 15 conferences later was still present. And kind of overachieved that expectation for me personally, obviously. And I see you were also there. He was there. So the love that I kind of got from Saget still continues up until today. And I hope we can keep going on that growing path in that sense. But it was a good sign.
Awesome. Hey, hi. So I'm curious about the, recently had a board member step down, as well as, Heather left. So I'm just wondering about the timeline or the plans to fill both the open community elected board member position as well as the executive director position, and what that looks like and timeline and stuff.
Patty, you should probably take this one.
Yeah, so that was what we were trying to figure out in this weekend together when we met, is to look at the timelines. And I think that normally what happens is that we think about all these things and we talk about it, and then we actually use DrupalCon to just, observe what is happening and what are the needs. And so for the, it was also last time like this. So for those who don't know, we had Heather, she resigned, and her last day was in the beginning of March. And so she resigned in the middle of February. She was the ED, and then there was immediately a plan that was set up, and the plan is, of course, how you do it. The board speaks then to the leadership team, and then Angie took over the acting ED role. And like last time, Tim did that last time when we did the same transition, and I think it took 6 to 9 months to actually go through the phase. So the board is the one who then goes into the search process of finding a new ED. And the same was with the succession plan in the board itself. We had actually a succession plan for the board chair and for the secretary and all that. It just happened a little bit quicker because people are also allowed to step down and say from these volunteering positions. And I actually encourage everyone in open source to do that, because we need to be able also to say, I can't participate as much as I could before, so therefore I would like to step down and I want to give somebody else the opportunity to step up. And that's what we did, so therefore that happened really quickly. Now we have another board member who also resigned recently. Also same, in all cases there has been a blog sent out from either those persons or from us, just about why that was or how we see that. And in this case it's a community elected board member that actually resigned, and his term was ending in the end of November. So we had an official board meeting happening this weekend, and we are going to announce the process of that just with a blog post just immediately when our people here are not working on DrupalCon anymore. To actually, and I would like to do that formally together with that person, because we are just going through the formal process of speaking to that person. We need to do the formal stuff, signing board agreements and all of that. But that has all been talked about and agreed on, and now you're just going to hear about it in a couple of days. So for the role of the two community elected board members, it will be 2 again. It is actually agreed on, but again, that person needs to be in line of all this communication. It takes a couple of days. So I hope that it answers the question.
I thought I'd throw up a follow-up question. So we've done sort of a leadership search process before, and that had involved, obviously, the board, participation from the staff, community input, and all those sorts of things. And I know all these details are still being worked out, but could you share maybe something of what you would like to see in the person you're recruiting for the ED role? Is there a particular quality that you feel is important for us as we're moving forward?
That's a good question. So we talked about it earlier. There are a lot of things that the Drupal Association is doing. And I can just say it is really difficult to find a person that can actually fit the checkbox, to check the checkbox for everything that needs to happen. So it is a really, a question of should that person be more focused on fundraising? Should that person be a technology person who knows exactly how to build and grow open source communities? I don't have the answer, and I certainly do not know the person who can fill all of these check boxes. So I can't say exactly, I would love to hear from you how you see it, but that is exactly what we need to find out here by listening to you. So that's why we are trying to have all these conversations. I know that Dries is, for example, as a project lead, having conversations with the strategic initiatives. He's meeting all the core committers. He's speaking to the stakeholders. Yesterday, we were talking to the agency owners. And I think that is exactly what we need. We need to hear it from you to be able also to figure it out.
Awesome. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, maybe I can add a little bit. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the process of finding an ED2. That might be useful to explain in 1 minute, but to find a new executive director, we will use, it's called a search firm, an executive search firm. And so how it works is you have to kind of create the job description and describe the attributes, to use your word, Tim, of the person that you're looking for. And so the way we've approached this is, one, we put, we put the temporary leadership in place, so to speak. We elevated Angie's role, and we feel very comfortable with Angie in that role. We're not worried about anything, really. And so that gives us the luxury of taking our time to figure out what we are looking for. And so we've been talking about this actually every week with the executive committee. And then last weekend here, we've had a lot of conversations about it with the entire board. And we're trying to figure out what is going to be the strategic focus, if you want, for the Drupal Association. What does the Drupal Association need the most to be successful the next couple of years? And once we've figured that out, not just with the help of the board, but by listening and talking to other people, we can really fine-tune and finalize the job description that we can then, pass on to the search firm and work with the search firm on finding that. So we haven't finalized the job description yet, as Badia explained, but we've made progress in our thinking. So that's kind of where we're at.
And Mike or Nick, you seemed like you had some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. So, first of all, I want to say, getting to meet Angie has been wonderful. It's amazing, the amount of care that she's putting toward her staff and to the Drupal project in general, even coming in as a non-software kind of outsider, and that really impressed me. So that made me really, really happy about the state of where we currently are. I personally have thoughts, and my thoughts don't represent the whole board or anything. I would love to see someone with open source experience in here that has from another successful community like us. But at the same time, I want to make sure that the DA doesn't continue to do stuff because it continues to do stuff. I want to make sure that we're thinking holistically about why do we do things? How does this advance the project as a whole? Not to be self-serving. I don't want the DA to exist to support itself. And over this weekend, we've had tons of conversations regarding that, and it was enlightening and wonderful and exhausting all at the same time. And we had a person kind of facilitating conversations, and he said at the end, he's like, I know your brain is full, and I'm like, mine is overflowing. But at the same time, it was so exciting because you could tell that we all care so much about this.
So please come and ask a question if you want to.
Yeah, please join us.
Yeah, I want to say something. We are unique in the sense of we've been pioneering this a lot of things. So therefore, it is not so easy for us just to say let's replicate this. So it's challenging. But Susanne, you were a board member.
Yeah, I have a hopefully provocative question. So I think we can see that the Drupal Association staff puts a great deal of effort into DrupalCon, and we really see the value of this. I'm wondering to what degree you think we should also be putting some of that energy into more external marketing initiatives, and if there's a way to maybe more effectively use some of those resources for that type of thing so we can have a broader reach.
Personally, I think that's spot on. Absolutely needed, and I know you're part of Promote Drupal, leading it, I think. So I think building more collaboration between the DA and Promote Drupal, I know that it's kind of fluctuated, maybe, but I think it's super important and critical, and I mean, I don't want to tell you all the things that the board talked about, but we did talk about, me along with the board, the importance of marketing Drupal and how impactful that is and can be and what the potential is there. So I strongly agree with the board's thinking on that, and I personally think it's really important. Without Drupal, then there is no DA, there's no DrupalCon, there's none of this. So I think it's really important that we continue to invest time and effort into that, and I think everyone on stage probably agrees.
This is something I'm really passionate about, and I can talk your ear off for a while. So there was a conversation, we were talking about Drupal's perception in the wider community, you know, and someone said something along the lines of like, yeah, I heard a story where someone tried out Drupal and they were like, oh yeah, I remember Drupal from like 10 years ago, I used that. And I think I interrupted and I said, yeah, and if you install it again, it looks the same. And people judge the book by its cover, and that's one of the reasons I've been working with, you know, doing the new themes. But that also goes toward Drupal.org. Drupal.org is a marketing tool, and like Drupal.org right now, the reason it exists and the way it does is because it has existed that way. And I think the move to GitLab will unburden Drupal.org from that, and I'm super excited about that, and that's going to change things. In addition to that, there's tons of like really cool marketing ideas that I'm going to float, and most of these ideas I want y'all to be aware of are very bad, but I'm going to float them, and they're probably going to get shut down, and that's totally okay. But I feel that we can do a good job, and I know the people up here are passionate about it. I know the staff members are passionate about it, and I have confidence in all of them.
Let me interject very briefly. There's some collaborations that are currently going on that I know you're aware of some of these, Suzanne, but and some others in terms of working with folks like community members in the Promote Drupal initiative, which I'm sure they'd appreciate more members at DrupalCon, to do things like revamp the Drupal for agency leaders, the Drupal for developers, the Drupal for marketers types of pages on Drupal.org. We're also working with partners at Third and Grove to do a look and feel refresh as part of our Drupal 9 upgrade, which has some really cool things coming. I don't want to spoil, but there's some things coming together that'll be really exciting that you'll be seeing pretty soon. And I think that's a little bit of a launch pad, but I also think there's room for amplifying a more coordinated effort around some of these things and around introducing or reintroducing Drupal, getting people to take a fresh look, and providing a place that is for the evaluator that gives them that instant experience that makes them want to take another step deeper and another step and become part of our community. So.
I don't want to spoil the party. I love marketing in that sense. I think there's like a big challenge out there that Drupal operates on a global scale. So the localization effect is massive, but it's also very challenging. So how do you put the right energy towards like the maximum efficiency, the maximum impact on a global scale? Japan, Asia, Europe in that sense, and the US obviously, or like all of the Americas. I think that's a question that we really have to think about really hard. It's a really difficult question. Like, how do you do branding across the globe? What is marketing in that sense? Like, define marketing. Like, if I ask any of you, you will all give a different answer. Inbound, outbound, all these things, conversion, whatever. So it's something that we need to solve as soon as possible, I think, to understand, like, okay, what's the best approach for that investment, for the DA to go forward with.
And to follow up on that, just one thing that Promote Drupal has tried to do is to create a committee around Drupal Ambassadors that's kind of meant to address that and actually ask the local association leaders, like, what are the needs and how can we do marketing. And of course, with no kind of event marketing, it was hard to do things like, oh, let's go to a conference in this new market. But there's been some small effort, the seed of that effort to maybe do that to some degree in the community. But I think there's a lot.
I think we can foster that and try and blow on the kindling and make that grow. I think the other thing is there's an ambition to bring more multilingual functionality to Drupal.org itself. And I think that's going to be a key part of this effort. And like, you can't just turn on localization and suddenly it's an international site. There's curation required, editorial control, and all those sorts of things, and that's going to require the community. We're not a big enough staff to do that, but that's an opportunity as well.
And I want to add to that. So I feel so everyone speaks English, or not everyone, but everyone that is here today. And what we tend to forget in the Drupal community is that yes, we do in code and in software we do speak English. We communicate in English. Our documentation is in English. You know, we go on all of these platforms to Stack Overflow, and it's all in English. You know. And but the market doesn't work like that. So and that is to the point that Nick was saying earlier. Like every single market speaks the language that they speak, and therefore, would that work for the Drupal Association to be in charge of like all of these markets and like have people there? Because there would nobody go on. You know, there nobody goes and searches for. You know, how can I do this with Drupal, or how is Drupal best forever, and ends up at Drupal.org if you're searching for Germany, in German. You know, so I think that these are interesting things that these are exactly the conversations that we need to have and think about, like, how can that be done? You know, we are not the only people in the world that have had that issue, but I know with a large organization, if I was a company, I would just, you know, hire then brand people in every single country and all that stuff, and that requires funding if you want to go and do that. So that is also something that like we need to figure out too. Like, okay, so how are we going to fund that activities? How are we going to do it? The local associations, I am president of the Icelandic Local Association and in Germany as well. And here we have Nick as well. You know, we would love to not have to do all that stuff ourselves. You know, because we don't have the time and the capacity to do it. But how are we going to do it? I don't know. And I think, Susanne, in your Promote Drupal, you know, I think we need to have that conversation.
Awesome. I'm going to ask a final question of our panelists. We have a little bit of time left. I'll go down the row starting with Angie. But what is something for the future of the Drupal Association, an upcoming program, a commitment, something that's talked about at the board level, any of those things, being as specific as you can, that you're excited about and you think people should be excited about as well?
Oh, it's really kind of difficult to pick one thing. Before I say, though, I also, going back to the executive director conversation, I also just wanted to say that the leadership team, Ashley and Tim, at the organization are phenomenal. And Tim did this role before, and the board could have just as easily had him step in, and he did such a great job. But I feel like we have such a strong leadership. So even though I have the title, Tim and Ashley are like so critical and are such a support. I feel like we are a fierce threesome. We all work really closely together. So I just wanted to recognize that. And Tim in particular is, you know, all over the place at this conference talking about so much cool stuff, and it's very impressive to me. So anyway, you know, there's so many cool initiatives happening, and I think we're at this exciting moment in time where we've come through a couple of difficult years, and we've built up enough resilience financially and enough of a strong team that we can start doing some really cool things and investing in, you know, the work with Drupal.org I think is really exciting. GitLab work is very exciting. And then for me, just honestly, the best part of the DA is just selfishly working with the staff is really great. We've got a really awesome team. So the thing that gets me the most excited every day is just to work alongside the staff and also alongside the board. I feel really lucky to be a part of that, and I think it's a reflection of the broader community. So for me, the people part is always kind of the first thing, but all the other stuff that's happening is so cool as well. So that was more than a few seconds, sorry, but
It's all right. We'll take a little time over. Betty, how about you?
Yeah, so what I think is really exciting is that Drupal is 20 years old, right? 21 years old. And it started to be like a lot of people, volunteers, doing it in their free time, hanging out at these events that you were talking about. And now we have, Teresa said it in his Dries note many times, that we have sponsored development. We have actually people who are doing it for a living. Many of us are actually working in companies and we are contributing to Drupal. So I feel like I'm excited about the Drupal Association and the Drupal project also like becoming that. And by that meaning like it is okay to be, highlighting the companies that are, back in the days, I'm sorry for coming a little bit over, but, it was not allowed to talk about the companies and, it's not allowed to talk about that you can make money in open source. Like, woo. But today, like open source is running everything today, and it is totally okay to have a really awesome ecosystem. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to see the Drupal Association play a part in that and help that to thrive in an open source environment. So that's my thought.
I'm going to be a bit more technical, sorry. But I'll make it very quick. I'm super excited about the transition to, and I'm very biased since this week, to GitLab. But not only about that, but I remember a keynote of you, Dries, saying like getting off the island, as in like crossing bridges. You did that with Composer, with Symfony, with those things. Making sure that the DA is focusing on really creating that value that is specific for the Drupal ecosystem, and not building the pipelines yourself and all of those. Like I'm really excited about like all the possibilities that is possible with that, and then in effect, like increasing that amount of people that are able to contribute somehow, maybe with features that are added by GitLab. I don't know, but that makes me really excited.
How about you, Mike?
Echoing the GitLab thing, that's exciting from a contribution standpoint, but I am almost more excited to unburden the technical debt from your staff and allow Drupal.org to innovate faster, and that includes like a lot of the marketing. Like I would love to have Drupal.org to have the most beautiful website with documentation that you can actually find, documentation that is a joy to contribute to. I want new contributors who go to Drupal.org to be able to figure things out, to be able to install stuff. And a lot of that will be enabled by unburdening with that technical debt and just open up so many possibilities. And that just makes me happy.
Awesome. And how about you, Dries?
Honestly, all the same things that have been said, but I think short term, I'm very excited about GitLab for all the reasons that were mentioned. And I think a little bit longer term, I'm very excited about the work that's happening around the Certified Drupal program and encouraging more organizations to become makers in the Drupal project, like have more organizations take on meaningful amounts of work, that leads to innovation in the project. I think that could be a complete game changer in the long run for Drupal. So I'm excited about all these things, and obviously the marketing piece too. Like, we have such an amazing project, we have such an amazing product, and we don't actually celebrate that enough. We don't actually share that enough with the rest of the world. And if we can do that, we can show the world how great Drupal is, how amazing the Drupal community is, all the things you can do with Drupal. That would be wonderful, like that would be really, really nice. So I'm excited about all these things. But again, it comes down to, time and resources and funding. So any way you can help, would be much appreciated.
So to close us out, your support as Drupal Association members, supporting partners, certified partners, is what makes all of this possible, everything that we do. And it has that multiplier effect I talked about earlier, right? Your donations, your contributions, your volunteering, let us do what we do, and then in turn, we put out more tools, more resources to hopefully make your lives easier, more efficient, and more sustainable, to create a more sustainable open source community and a more equitable open source community. So join me in thanking all of our panelists, and thank you also for all of your time.